very frequently has connected with us and has been kind enough to be here with us. Now, I would like to invite our respected director, sir, of the Heritage Cell, Dr. Phanikant Mishra, to start the program with his official speech. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Anuja. And on behalf of Heritage Cell, Maulana Abdul Kalam Azad University of Technology, we thank Mr. Sivasankar Babu, member of Tamil Heritage Trust from Chennai, to have accepted this online lecture for us. He has been with us since long. In many of the lecture series, he has joined us, and we are lucky to listen him. His all very scholarly lectures. So today, as you all know, that he is going to speak on a very important monument, that is a World Heritage Monument declared by UNESCO in 1984. And Konark is known to everyone. All over the world, people know Konark because when I was the regional director of Archaeological Survey of India Eastern Zone, Konark was with me, and we used to see that Konark gives maximum tourists who are coming from India as well as abroad, and a lot of people want to see this monument. As all of us know, I will just brief you all about Konark before Mr. Babu starts his lecture, so that you are little knowing Konark more in detail and become friendly with this temple. All panelists and all listeners, all viewers, all of you are also welcome. So as we all know, the Konark temple was built from stone in the form of a giant ornamented chariot. All must have been having this knowledge. Monumental representation of sun god is there. It was built in 13th century AD, and it is attributed to King 𝘚𝘯𝘨 of the Eastern Ganga dynasty. About 1250 AD is the dating of this temple. This architect was Vishnu Maharana, and it is having stone chariot with 12 wheels. 12 wheels. It is known as Black Pagoda also, because this temple of Jagannath Puri was White Pagoda, and this is known as the Black Pagoda by the persons who were coming from the sea route. For them, this building was looking like a black pagoda, and this was a symbol for them. It is one of the original temple had, as we know, this temple was originally built with 2 tiers. The Viman, the main Viman fell in 1837. Much of the temple is in ruins now, but it has still intricate artwork, iconography, and themes including erotic, calm, and mythal scenes are popular here. Nobody knows the cause of destruction. No conclusion has come that how this temple had come down, had fallen. Somebody says it is a natural damage, but the final, we have no information about it, how it had fallen. It's a Nagar temple architecture. The plan has all traditional elements of Hindu temples set on a square plan. The main temple no longer exists, as I told you. It was, it has many subsidiary shrines containing niches depicting Hindu deities, particularly Surya in many aspects. And it has one big sanctum and Bhadra Deul, that is a Jagmohan, small sanctum. It is said that main sanctum was 229 feet high, the measurement which they give it. But how it had fallen, there are so many theories which is coming, which we will listen from Mr. Babu also in his lecture. What is his final and what is his view about it, that how it has fallen. Somebody says that it had the effect of magnetic theory. Some say that lightning was one of the reasons that it had fallen. Someone says that earthquake theory was also there. And some even said that closing down of the temple was also one of the causes of its that it has fallen. Then even one theory says that the foundation was very weak, and with that it has fallen. But anyway, nobody has concluded yet, and temple was never completed. This we as an archaeologist feel, and we come to this conclusion only. It had a square mandapa, which had a pyramidal roof, and the Pancharath plan was seen in this temple. And its east side has Natamandir. It stands on a high, intricately carved platform. Chlorite stone was used for its construction. You know, chlorite stone is a very rough stone. It's not very easy stone like we see the stones in South India, like softer stone. It's a very hard stone. And not only chlorite was used here, it is also mentioned that it's seen that with chlorite, laterite was also used here, and the khandolite stone. All these three stones were used. And biggest thing is, none of these stones are available very near to the temple. They were in long distances. The quarries were there, and people has to use a river or a sea route to go for the stones. A statue of Sun Temple was also reportedly damaged once, as we all know, and while removing the scaffolding on its eastern side, and I don't feel any shy in saying that it was the negligence by my department, Archaeological Survey of India officers, because that scaffolding was open, and with the result, that beautiful Surya image was damaged. I think those officers should have taken a lot of care to save it. So, as the building techniques I told you, and then very important thing which is there, that Surya has shown here in none of the temples of the country, like here, which we see Surya in various forms. And Surya's depiction is very nicely mentioned here, and all 7 types of Surya sculpture like Gayatri, Brihati, Ushni, Jagati, Trishthubha, Anushthubha, Pankti. Usha and Pratyush goddess is also shown very well in the plan, and it has having a stone chariot, as I told you, with 12 wheels. And this temple is one of the rare temple which the Archaeological Survey of India is protecting as a national monument of World Heritage site. It's building techniques and other mysteries which I don't want to repeat it, as Mr. Babu will also explain us. So with all this little brief introduction, I would request our eminent scholar, Mr. Sivasankar Babu, member of Tamil Heritage Trust, to come forward and just explain us more and more. What I would be happy to listen from him if he covers these things, that what drove the king to build this biggest temple, how this biggest temple was built, why was it built in a remote place, was there a seaport river nearby, how many years it took to complete the temple, where did he source the artists to craft this and the stones to be quarried, how were the iron beams cast? These are little questions which I would be expecting answers in his lecture from Professor Babu. And then how many years the temple got completed and was in worship or abandoned before? What is his diagnosis in this? How did it collapse? God's curse, neglect, war atrocities, nature's act. So we would be very happy if you give us little briefs of these little queries, inquisitiveness, which every scholars and the listeners would have from you. So I welcome again Mr. Sivasankar Babu, and we are eager to listen you in detail about this World Heritage Monument, Konark. Professor Sivasankar Babu.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for giving an excellent overview about the Monument of India, Konark, and you have been living in it and you have been nurturing it for a long period, and it is really happy to hear it from your own words on how it has been structured and other things. And actually, there are a lot of interesting questions, and I am not a scholar and I am not the research scientist, but what I am presenting today is a consolidated view of experts across multiple areas, and also some of the books which has explored the past and some of the findings. And I am putting my own views on what it could have happened based on the books I have read and the content I have gone through, and after visiting only one time. So this is purely my view or my perception. This might be wrong or this might be different. And there will be so much of scholarly information or counter arguments available. So this is the purpose of this talk, is to kindle the interest and then see people understand the various mysteries and how it could have. It is like a Alfred Hitchcock kind of a mystery story where it is totally missing and then suddenly it slowly starts appearing. And this is what I want to create, an excitement and inquisitiveness in learning more and more about Konark. So that is the objective of this. Today, I am not going to go anywhere inside Konark. I am going to either stand outside or have a 30,000 view above Konark, not anywhere inside Konark. Primarily, this talk is going to talk about how it was built, how it vanished from this, and how it was slowly recovered over a period of time. And then what a beautiful job ASA has done in the last years in recovering it from a stone or a sand mound to the current beautiful structure of whatever is remaining. So this is a story, history, archaeology, and other parts. We are not going into the temple side. So that itself will take more than 1.5 hours. So I am trying to be maximum brief as possible. Before we start, I'd like to thank the Maulana Abdul Kalam University of Technology for giving me one more chance to interact, and they have been a fairly good association, and there is interesting concept of mixing heritage with technology and science, where we say describe scientifically how heritage has been progressing. That way, this has been heritage share has been a very good thing, and excellent support from Professor 𝘚𝘗𝘓 Mishra. He has been a good leading light, and the way he has been pushing this programs is pretty good. I thank him all, and our mentor and Dr. Phanikanta Mishra, who have been nurturing these temples, and then I'm happy to do a presentation under him and then get his validation and the views from him on the presentation. And the ever-present Anuja Bose, who have been handling this infrastructure, coordination and other things in an excellent way with a smiling face. I thank them all and the infrastructure team of UTech. And with this, we start the presentation. So like I said, we are going to peek into the past. What we have here is only the Jagmogana, the prayer hall of the temple. The original Diola or the sanctum is missing. It has been demolished. And if it have been left it based on the architectural structuring and progressing, it could have standard tall around 225 feet. And this is the architectural conjunction by Ramakrishna Kongala of IITF team. Is a very good visual. So with this we start. So this is going to take another 1 hour of my time. Before we start this, I would like to highlight some of the books and then experiences based on which I have started this presentation. One, my experiences with Tamil Heritage Trust and the training and site seminar visit to Orissa, where I started presenting this as one of the subjects and gradually got interested in it. And I am thankful for the ASI Konark for the latest beautiful photos without any. Till last year, it was full of scaffolding and we couldn't enjoy the beauty of this. Now with the scaffoldings removed and the full splendor of the monument is available to us. And image credit from various groups, Sun Temple Konark FB group, and some of this from the book, and miscellaneous pictures, and mainly from ASI. Reference book, most of the conclusions are drawn and content taken from the path-breaking book, New Light on Sun Temple by Alice Bonar, Sadasiva Sharma, Rajendra Prasad Das, and modified suitably with some amount of alternate validation and views by Dr. Anil Day in his Sun Temple of Konark documentation. And if you are interested in reading further about Konark, the basic level is by History of India and Indonesia by Anand Kumarasamy, and gradually you can expand into Hindu Temple Art of Orissa by Donaldson, and then Ganga Monarch and Monumental Legacy by Donaldson, and also Konark, the Black Pagoda by K.S. Behra. So these are all some of the books which you can read further. These are reference books, but this is something which will be giving it in a far more simpler nutshell. So today what we are going to do, I am assuming that audience today is familiar with English. They know the basics of temples and they understand the big picture of pan-Indian history. So I'm not going very deep into history. What I'm going to do today is the mystery and history of Konark, the king who made it happen, and who are the artisans who made it happen, how did they construct it, and the sequence and chronology for the 12 years, and how probably would have gone into decline and fail, and how it was rediscovered, and speak into some of the original structure, what it would have liked based on the drawings available. And finally, 30,000 feet kind of an overview. So what we are not going to cover here is go into the temple architecture and describe the sculptures and other things in detail, historical sculptures, secular sculptures, landscape. We are not going to go into Konark at all. There are enough presentations and sir here can talk about it for so many times. And that is a pleasure by itself. So here the focus is only on the mystery and how it is constructed. So if you want more details, you can read on these reference books. So to start on this, let us give an overview of what Konark is. This is a monumental temple and the one of the kind temple built for Surya and with a unique Iran type of an iconography that was built like a chariot. This World Heritage Monument, the only one from the Odisha, the land of temples. It is named after sun. The original temple was supposed to be built by Samba, son of Krishna, by Magas, the Iranian descendants from the Sakatipa. So that is how it is mentioned in Puranas. The Vishnu Purana talks about Orissa having 4 kshetras with 4 weapons of Vishnu. Bhuvaneshwar for Chakra, Puri for Shank, and Viraja, Jajpur for Gata, and Konarka for the Padma. So this is one of the sacred 4 sides of this one. And Brahma Purana talks about 4 major religious centers: Ekamra, the grand temple in Bhuvaneshwar, Puri for Vishnu, Viraja or Jajpur for the Shaka cult, and Konaditya for Sun. So the 4 major sects that are available at this point of time. So this is how we see this temple as of now. The grand temple, the what you see here is not the actual sanctum. This is the prayer mandapa called Jagmogana, and the Natya mandapa, the Moga mandapa, and the other is the entire complex surrounding it. But this is not how it looked like when it was found. Let us see, going back in history, around 600 years ago, last description about Konark temple was by Abul Fasal, which talks about a grand temple near Jagannath, and it is a fantastic one, and it's a grand temple. But again, there is no mention for the next 200 years, no news, nothing. It seems to be vanished, and it has gone to the forest, vanished. Then in 1759, the Madala Panji, the documentation of Puri Jagannath temple, talks about one of the gurus, Baba Brahmacharya, of the Maharashtra rulers. He has heard about a grand temple and he wants to explore on this. And then he arrives after so much of travel, comes around in a big mound of sands and creepers. And then after some amount of clearing on the north and eastern side, he identifies the Ratna Simhasana image and Aruna Stamba and the image of Raja Narasimha and Navagraha stones and something. So he tries to recover and move some of whatever he could excavate, he moves in. So the Aruna Stamba is now at a Puri Simhadwara, which is originally from Konark. The Navagraha stone is in Gundicha temple and so many other artifacts. There was a second trip where Deva Brahma Pattanayaka, he tries and visits during 1793, 1795. So he also brings some of the images, Babaji image to Hanuman temple, Sakti image to Gundicha temple. And at the time, the Raja was captured by British, and then the activity stops. Then slowly the British took over, and then they also start visiting, camping near the temple, and then start identifying what this temple is about. This is how this looks like a mount at that point of time. Okay. So there are various paintings, like a small section of this one, view from this one, that was published in various Asiatic journals. And then again, there is no excavation, they keep on painting. And Ferguson does a grand job of going into detail and painting it in minute detail. And with these paintings, we see that the projecting side wall of the main Sanctum Dura is still there. There is a huge mound, and then partially it is standing like a sail. The Navagraha lintel here is still there, and then pillars on the Mukasala are already collapsed on the front side. And if you see the dimensions, only now he understands that This is a temple far more bigger than what we are seeing live temples in Bhubaneswar and Puri. And then he starts getting interested and start documenting more and more and exploring. So the digging continues. There are more photographs coming up on the southeast of the mandapa and then main entrance and then some of the damaged pillars and the close we have right half of the see this is on the top tiers. Okay, if a person, this is a full life size view. If a person can comfortably sit in this area, now you can imagine the grandness of this temple and size of the temple. So when British were looking at this is how it looked like. The entire area is covered in sand with only this area visible, one big 𝘱𝘓𝘠 and some of the dilapidated pillars jutting out, and the back, the damaged Dula. This is what they say. And slowly after digging out, they see some more content coming up, and then they see that there are three subsidiary temples, and this has got a very structured, beautiful Nata Mandira. And then they start keeping digging, and then they remove the stones, and then slowly this is the way it looked like in 1800s. They identify the earlier sun temple, which is the 𝘗𝘨𝘨 temple, and they see the three Suryas, morning Surya, afternoon Surya, and the evening Surya, and the Natha Mandira. In 1848, the remaining portion of the Dula collapses due to strong gates. And this is where they start identifying interesting points. They start digging around the platform, and then they say that this is not a level ground. This is on a 7 to 8 or on a strong big pedestal. The entire temple is standing. If you see below the pedestal, we see the chariot, the wheels, and a lot of beautiful sculptures on this. And they also excavate and find out the elephants, horses, and race platform. So that itself gives a grand glory. Later on, in 1901, Governor Woodburn senses that the 𝘱𝘓𝘠 is slowly crumbling. What he does is he fills the interior, they closes the main door, and he fills the interior with the sand from the rooftop. Even that itself, just to pour sand and fill up this structure, it takes them 3 years to accomplish. Then in 1909, 𝘗𝘨𝘨 temple was again, so they are clearing more and more sand and then finding more things. And there are so many artifacts lying around. These artifacts were moved in 1915 to the shed, sculpture shed, and the Navagraha panel is kept there and started worship. In 1939, they cleaned some more sand here and then identify the kitchen black, the Vaishnava temple here, and other details. And finally, after so much of processing, in 1984, it was declared as a UNESCO heritage site. And in 2005, there was some research done in 𝘱𝘓𝘠 to see whether we can evaluate and then remove the sand inside the 𝘱𝘓𝘠 for recovery. So this is how, yes, a temple which was forgotten to the world was slowly rediscovered and restructured by the ASI from 1890 till 2015-16. Even now, restoration work is going on. But having seen this, there are a lot of unanswered questions which are coming to us. Like Phanikanta Sharma sir said, the king, what drove him to build this biggest temple, and why he built it not in Varanasi, Cuttack, or Puri, or Bhubaneswar, Instead, he put it in a remote place. How many years it took? From where he got this brilliant artisans to craft this? Because the craft work and other things surpasses the work which has been done in Puri or any of the other ones. Was it by slave labor? And they couldn't find any seaport near to transport material. And there's no, as of now, there is no river near Konark. How did they move the stone blocks to this desert beach? Why did they use iron beams? And then what is the value to the stone structure? Okay. And then interestingly, the normal engineering question, how did they lift all the stone blocks and iron beams into such heights? The fundamental question, was it completed and was it in worship? And how did it collapse? What is the theory for it? So to answer all these things, some of the books and in this presentation, the books relied upon two major historical primary sources. One is the Babu4Heritage. It is a project book which is written in Quranic script in 𝘗𝘬𝘵 with 73 leaves. So this covers the 12 years of construction from 1241 to 1258, from the year 1718. For this is his regnal year 1718. This is primarily the book of accounts, like a project book, what are the expenses and other things. In addition to the expenses, what they have interestingly described is some diagrams, some inputs, and also some of the interesting events. So this gives a very good insight into the building of Konark, and this is one of the kind document. Nowhere in India for a temple of this size and for this duration, for grandeur, there is a detailed documentation available on how it was built, how many people, who are all the involved people. The next best documentation is from the big temple of Thanjavur, built by 𝘗𝗏𝘗 𝘗𝘓. But again, there, the documentation is more of the post-grant funds, how much it has been funded, who are the participants to the construction, and the other details, not about the actual construction details. In that way, this is an unique document, one of the kind document, and during 11th century, we should be proud that somebody has built a temple with ISO kind of standard documentation, which is available to us. There are some questions about the veracity of this document and other things, and there are counterclaims and other things. We leave it to that. And then what I am focusing on is on the crux, which cannot be fabricated beyond a point, and the big picture, it tallies with most of the major constructions. The second document is interesting document. This is like a project documentation at a later point of time, like writing a functional specs from the source code kind of a scenario, where the king at that time in 17th century, he does constitute a survey report for detailed documentation of big temples like Lingaraja, Jagannatha, Padmakeswara temple. This is how it is, Konark is called at that time. So that gives a detailed size documentation and measurement and components, and it is again written in Quranic script. And this contains some interesting diagrams also. The third document, interesting document, is the popular Madalapanji, the Puri temple journal, started by Anantavarma Chodaganga, and frequently destroyed in every raid by Muslims. And then it is rewritten, and then it is reworked and other things. But again, for this reason, it is also sometimes taken with a pinch of salt. But as a corroborating evidence, it's a good source. So these are the primary sources. In addition, we have some more documentation which are very useful in coming up with the chronology of Konark. One is the Trikala Mahamaya Archana Vidhi, which is primarily a puja rule kind of a document in tantric form, written in Oriya script in Sanskrit, on how the puja happened in the earlier old temple. There is also a detailed document called 𝘚𝗯𝘂 𝘠𝘯𝑦𝘍, which primarily details the rituals established in the main temple, written in Quranic script. So it talks about what is to be done on a daily, what is the 16 kind of puja, what is the steps, what is the special days, what is the special pujas, what is the alankara, what is offering, all these details are there. So with this, we are sure that the temple was completed, it was consecrated, and it was in puja, and the puja rules and everything were followed. In addition, you can also do some cross-validation with the 𝘚𝘩𝘀 the technical treatise on Orissa architecture. If you see the plan and measurements of Konark, it exactly matches the definitions of 𝘚𝘩𝘀 in terms of base plan, mandala, and other things. Interestingly, the ratios are around 1.5 times Puri temple. Sorry, the 𝘗𝘗𝘯 temple. So all these are taken together and then come to the conclusions in the next slides. Now, before going into the mysteries and histories, okay, let us see about the king. So normally the king is more popular about the king. So what type of a king who made this fantastic king? Before going into this, I want to compare and do a comparison of two grand kings. Both were son of a great king emerging from the shadow, and then they were the military commander even during their father time and won many wars for him as a crown prince. So both invaded Bengal in their initial years and later on consolidated southward to come up with a grand empire to fulfill a vision which is bigger than his father's. And they wanted to commemorate their victories by building a grand monument, and which should be bigger than the temples that were built by his forefathers. So the temple, interestingly, during the reign of the kings and for the several generations, both these temples achieved pinnacle of fame, but gradually fell into disuse, while his forefathers' temples were continued to be in worship even now. So this is a very interesting parallel between two great kings of South and East. One is 𝘚𝘗𝘯𝘗, who ruled 1238 to 1264, who was the sponsor of the 𝘚𝘗𝘀𝘟 of Konark. By now you might have guessed who the other person is. He is none other than the one who built the Gangai-Konda Cholapuram, Rajendra Chola, 1014 to 1044. So they were behind by 200 years, but their thinking, their approach, their design, the way they built it, both are almost one in the same, the way they structured it. And if you can check up this history and compare Rajendra Chola and 𝘚𝘗𝘯𝘗, they are far excellent. They are some of the emperors who have done things beyond imagination. They are bigger than their fathers. Rajaraja achieved grand fame in building big temple, but Rajendra Chola surpassed that with a bigger kingdom, and it may not be a bigger temple, but fantastically different, totally different structure in Gangai-Konda Cholapuram. So this is some character. Before going into details, let us see a big peek about the 𝘗𝘗𝘮𝘗 dynasty to which 𝘚𝘗𝘯 belongs to. They have been the temple builders of Odisha. In the 400 years, they have achieved which no other dynasty could achieve in that short period of building so many grand temples and big temples. And in this, we will be focusing on a few kings who made a difference. One is 𝘚𝘗𝘮𝘯 𝘛𝘩𝘗𝘁, who was related to 𝘗𝑪𝑎𝑗endra Chola of Chola dynasty. And ultimately, the Kulothunga who went from the Vengi, when he became the king of Cholas, there was a big war and then sacking by him, and then the Kalinga was defeated repeatedly. And this is where the rebuilding of Puri temple starts. Then the Anaga Bhimadeva II completes the Puri temple to the current shape, and his daughter Chandrika completes Ananta Vasudeva. There are so many other temples getting built continuously. Rajaraja couldn't do much, primarily because he was on the defense with Muslims. Anaga Bhimadeva III built the Bhaskareswara temple. This is a unique temple with a two-tier level and with the Ashoka pillar converted as a grand stamba of a linga. There's a unique temple by itself. So, with this kind of a lineage, do you think Narasimha will keep quiet and do things? He wanted a grander temple which will beat all these things. So he builds Padmakesara, and he has built several other temples in Kurma temple and other things. But this is his and the final stamp which stood out the time and then still conveying his grandness. So let us see how this emperor looked like. This is one of the pictures of Narasimha that is available in the museum. And during this empire building, even during the 18 years, he was the commander of South, and then he defeated Ganapati Deva and then Malik Izzuddin, plundered the capital of Gaud, and then Umaruddin killed. And so he has been on the war foot, and he has been continuously on the war to expand the Orissa kingdom. And he was the only Ganga prince who was going on the offensive on the south as well as on the north side, and on the to a certain extent on the western side, so that there was no invasion from Bengal Muslims for the next 300 years till Kalam started it in 1568. Such was the stability and control. That is the kind of similar structure which was set up by Rajendra Chola for Cholas, which lasted another 250 plus years. You see the other side of the warrior, the temple building passion. Even during the early young days, he has recruited 500 workmen for the temple building, and from the Warangal campaign, and using them, they did war and also do some amount of temple construction. And even before he was king, during the prince days, he has started the quarrying work way ahead. And in addition, he has built the temples of 𝘗𝘗𝘯𝘓, Simhachalam, Kapalash temple, which are different types. Each one of them is a signature. So he is popularly called as Silpajana and Ekavali. So this shows the king who was passionate, who wanted temple, who has been planning it from younger days, and then who collated a good collection of artisans and created a lot of fund by war booty, and then he realized his dreams on time. Now let us see the artisans who built it and how they built it. Baya Sakada, the project document, describes in detail about the various responsibilities and other things. Like that, like Sir mentioned, Sadasiva 𝘚𝘯𝘓 𝘠𝗪𝘏 𝘠𝗪𝘤, the chief architect, and we had a lot of other next level, third level guys. Gandhadhara Mahapatra as the Karmakara, as executive architect, or the Parichar, the super tough work. Vidyadhara Mara as the Murti maker. Ainta Maharana as a fancier, like a stonemason. And then they talk about a lot of designations. And then interestingly, camp admin, Harichandana Brahmarambra as the accounts guy who is doing this accounts. And in addition, there are sponsors where their primary queen, Sita Devi Tukarani, was very much interested and very frequent mentions about Rani staying here for a long period and looking after the construction. The Raja Gurus, Viswanatha Mahapatra and Bhuvaneshwara Mahapatra were also involved. 𝘱𝗪𝘨 was the final priest. So this gives the complete details of the key components, who are all the architects and how much salary they were given, what is the bonus for each of the work, how much amount was given, all these details are available. It also talks about various types of artisans like goldsmiths, painters, sunura, and then people specializing in fretwork, jali work, iron casters. Okay, because this is a very critical one where a lot of iron beams are used, which is of very good quality. Bronze casters, this is primarily for the chisels, and then stone workers, and then stone quarries, and Maharana as a qualified architects, stone specialists, and a lot of Shilpis, Shilpanayakas, and then instructors, Radhakara. Like that, there are Sutradharas who are actually the planners and draftsmen. And this goes into detail on what their role, how they did it, and all these details. So we get to know how earlier period project works in a typical big project kind of a thing. Another interesting thing about Konark is that Konark is on a bland beach front. Where did they get the stones for quarrying this? And then how did they arrive? There is no river nearby, and then there is no harbor nearby. How did they arrive on this? There is a big question. If you look at this, the earlier documentation and other thing talks about the Chandrabhaga river flowing near Konark, like this. And now it has dried out. It is no longer available. This is the Ekamra Bhubaneswar. This is the Bidnasi Katak, and this is where the Puri is. So these are all existing rivers, whereas this river has dried out now. So they say that the entire transportation was done through Chandrabhaga river, and a special channel cut here to do this. And the rivers using this channel, the stones were sourced from this far using this channel, or from these hills or these hills, almost 60, 70 or 80 miles away using the river channel, and then it is from here. It is a phenomenal foresight and planning. And like I said earlier, the quarrying started 6 or 7 years before he actually started doing the construction. So much of planning. And they have used varieties of stones like mahogany, chlorite of various colors, white chrolate, blue chrolate, and then kala mahogany for some of the puja images with very fine restoration. This is one of the hardest type of stones. And regada rougher chlorite for the pillars of Magashala. And then they have used Chitrakunda for primarily outer things. And then the laterite for the foundation and other stuff, and this one. So there is also, they used a lot of sandstones for the various structure of very varieties. So this talks about in detail about how the stones were sourced, how they were cut, and then how they were hoisted. So this is another aspect. on answering some of the points like how the stones were sourced. Then comes the iron beams. This is an interesting thing. Nowhere in any other temple, iron beams were used in such an extensive way, along with huge stones. And how they did it was a mystery. So this iron beams were used to buttress on the pillars and build it on the cross beams between the pillars, and to take the load of the huge dula. And advanced foundries were there, and technology to smelt high purity rust proof cast iron is there. The recovered damaged iron pillars have been left in the open from 1800 when it was cleared for 200 years. They are left in the open, and after so much of rain and other things, it is still in very good condition. Probably the usage of heavy iron pillars have led to a lot of myths on the magnetic pillars. So this is how the iron pillars look like. Again, this 𝘗𝘃𝘀 talks about various scaffolding and structures used for this. Unlike the popular myth on other things, they didn't use slopes or mud slopes or anything for doing it. Primarily, they were building scaffoldings and then yes, a combination of pulleys and side slopes to raise it, either by manual or with elephant or with pulleys and other structures. So these are some of the drawings written by 𝘚𝘯𝘯 𝘚𝘯𝘪 based on the description that are available in the 𝘗𝘃𝘀. So with this, we can understand the kind of construction techniques which are used there. If you compare this with a similar big temple which was built by Rajaraja Chola in Thanjavur, okay, it was built with a very shallow foundation of 6 feet with a large grain sand, shifting sand, which takes a load. And there were no mortar used in that entire temple. Entire temple is precision cut stone blocks with interlocking and no mortar used. So double wall reduced cone kind of a structure where you have a Sandara structure in between, which takes the load of the main Vimana and splits it into the 2 walls. So there no need for usage of iron beams to take the load of the entire Vimana. And for building the higher slope, they have used the mud slope to access the higher points, unlike the Konark. So this is how they structure. They first build one layer, put some sand, and then go to the next layer, build the next one, put some more sand. Like that, they start slowly building and they start accessing the higher things. Once the base structure is over, then they come back and start doing the finer details at each level. So this is how this artist visualizes the temple would have done when it is almost complete and when the Shikhara and other areas are done. So there is some evidence of the mud flats and the calculations tally to some of the places called Sarapallam and other things around 7 or 8 kilometers away from Thanjavur, which aligns with the slope and the gradient. So this is stark contrast between 2 major constructions, one done with the brick and one with stone and mortar like paste and along with the iron beams and compacts. The other temple which was structured with no mortar, no things, precision stone structure, and the entire weight of this balanced on Sandara structure and the heavy Shikhara. This stands till now after going through 7 or 8 earthquakes after 1,000 years. Unfortunately, there is some issues in Konark and the main Dula has fallen. We will see how it is, what is the faults and potential structure failures in the later section. Let us see how it was built. It is an interesting thing. Like I said earlier, this is a project doc. 𝘗𝘗 is a project document, and it is a chronology of construction of events. So it is the one of the most advanced ISO 21500 documents for handling any projects, but it was done in 1250, not in 2021. Again, it is like any other current day IT or a construction document. The same confusion, same tamasas, everything is there. I'm just sharing some, in the interest of time, I'm sharing some of the interesting events that were mentioned in the long of some 70, 80 pages of detailed documentation. So it was kicked off with the 𝘱𝘯𝘗 ceremony, and there are some good festivization and then puja for everybody. And the teams are sourced from many things. So also an expert team arose from Madurai, from Tamil Nadu. The king Narasimhadeva's father-in-law is a Pandey Raja. So he also sends a team of artisans, sculptors along with the fund and then money. They also start working. And there is some interesting story about the craftsmanship of Madurai Silpis. They say that the Sutradhara is not comfortable with this one. He rejects the work and then offended the Madurai Silpis go on a hunger strike. The Sutradhara is confused because it's his father-in-law's people. He didn't know how to handle it, so escalates to Raja. Probably this may be due to the fact that the Silpis were used to very, very heavy granite work where their strokes and their techniques are different. And they are now working in softer chlorite and the other stones, which are slightly lesser strong and probably on the sandstones. So that might have left to this one. So Raja comes up with a very intelligent solution. So he assigns them only in the jali work and on the river the door work and list, where it is mainly the chloride and where the stone is very hard and we are able to do lot of finer creative work. So this is an outsourced project with expertise from multiple locations wherever they are. So if they build up the framework, iron casting is done, and then surrounding parcel devas are set up in the. So it has started. The project has started in the 5th regnal year of Narasimhadeva, and by seven years they have completed the iron casting and parcel deva and everything are completed. And then there are frequent client visits. So like any other client visit, when Maharashtra or the king comes in, so everybody prepares for the visit, and the project book says that for 5 days there was no contributory work and everybody is preparing for the Maharashtra visit. Nothing different from the current day projects. So after 7 or 8 years, they're trying to put the big lions on top of Shikara and then wall about it. And this is where the cone gets closed. And after that, we go into the Amaleka and other top parts. And we, as usual, like in a project, we come up with a lot of delivery failures. A huge load of mahogany stone, which is supposed to come from the mountains, failed to arrive. So the contractor, the pilot or the boatman was fined for this one. So this kind of delivery failures are their part of it. And project funding, frequent project funding, where the 𝘗𝘗𝘗 mentions about Raja comes with the treasure from Malwa, Raja comes with treasure from Bengal. The Chittor invasion was done, and then there are gold coins for everybody. Like that, each and every event, each and every milestone completion, there was rewarding, and then there was celebration. And finally, on the 10th year, around 10th year, so Raja says that we have been doing this enough. And finally, on the 10th day of 10th month from now, from the 10th year, I want this roofing to be completed. So gives a deadline. His objective is that during son's birthday, he wants to do the inauguration. So like our current day budgets on Pradhan Mantri day, birthday or anything, they want to inaugurate and the same story happens. So it has been doing in a hurry. There are integration issues like any other project like in this one. Kalasa could not be fixed. There are mismatches and then balance out and then Sutradhara consults many people, pujas, and finally somehow they made it happen. So the target, the temple goes on live on 11th day of February on son's birthday in 1258 AD. On the 18th regnal year, after 13 years, on the 18th regnal year of 𝘚𝘯𝘨, the temple was consecrated. And this is what the document says. And after that, the Vidyadharana Pattanayaka completes the account, settles everybody, gives everybody reward, makes 3 copies and files over, and then puts the seals on the document. So this is what you could gather from some of the interesting points about this. So a typical project process like is summed up in the translation of the document, impatient and the first recorded and the impatient, and then somehow finish it. Okay, and when Beki was set up, symptoms of instability is coming up, and then there is a stopgap work and assembly. They were approached in the assembly of workers, and then the Amalaka fixation issues like that. When you do this kind of projects and with the hurried final dates, this do crop up, and there might have been some mess up in structural issues. That is also possible. So this gives a idea of how it took 12 years to complete this project, and this documentation gives the 12 years of complete history on how things are done. No other temple, no other big monument has this kind of a detailed documentation. Now that we know how it is done, how it is structured, let us explore on the history and documentation and what is the potential causes of its failure. So 𝘚𝗏𝘀𝘚𝘀 Mangi was Karmangi was there. There is a huge document on how everyday ritual, prayer, festivals, everything was done. So we are sure that it was consecrated in actual worship and it was done for a long period. The last documentation is 1570 by Abdul and where he mentions that it is still under worship. Then in after 1570, Kalapahad writes from Bengal and the decline starts. So some damage was done to the temple, but before his visit, the key jewels and other things have been already removed. So in frustration, he hacks the hands of the Adityas in a temple and then other things, but he couldn't do much damage to the temple. But with the damaged idol and other things, pujas were stopped, and then slowly maintenance was going into doldrums. Nobody is worshipping of the damaged temple, and slowly it goes into disuse because the bulk of the images were moved to Puri. So no maintenance. And the upper Vimana is exposed to severe storms and rains, would have lost. The challenge here is that this is built by laterite stone with the gaps filled with the mason work. The lime gets corroded easily after 100 years, and we need to have a frequent fix with the lime coat and other things. So this was not done, and then one of the huge 𝘗𝘗𝘯𝘏s rotating on all fours. Unfortunately, the one on the eastern side falls, ripping off the complete side. It's a huge counterbalance one. So it also damages the puja image. So the remaining two 𝘗𝘗𝘗𝘗 were shifted to Purushottama temple, and still it is available in Magha Shukla Saptami. Konark Ratha happens there in Purushottam temple in Puri. So gradually, the 𝘱𝗪𝗀𝘃𝘀𝘀, the document on the seal, colophon, it mentions that for 12 years the Sevaks did not do the duty Bhoga Karmangi properly. That the sun god left the temple gradually. So probably around 1600, the worship started stop, and then after that it was left to the weather and other things slowly started degrading. In 1929, there was a scientific research done around the mass. Mass starts growing only when there is no maintenance. So they have analyzed the mass in some of the corners and other things where they grow without any disturbance. And they do the reverse calculation and they find that the mass formation started around 1572 kind of thing, which almost tallies with the conjectural and the documentary evidence available for the time. So around 1600, the worship stopped and then the temple slowly degraded into disuse and then started collapsing. So this is one digital reconstruction badly done of how the full temple would have done. Logically, this should have been somewhere here, not so close to here. The structuring is wrong. And there are many legends to this. Like that, the peak was done by the 12-year-old son of chief architect. There is an iron plate, and then there are magnets which are suspending the sun ideal. And when in the morning the sun's first rays will fall on the sun ideal. But because very tough, because if you see the alignment, 3 mandabas are there. Even if it is very shallow, the aperture will be a challenge. Central magnets were removed by British. Portuguese took away the magnets. Lodestone fill out, which damage the magnet. All this magnetic stuff remains as myths or legends only. If you see the 12-year documentation of Sakada, they talk about in detail about iron pillars, structures, and other things. And then there is not even one single mention of magnet or something on this. So they, in my view, they remain as myths or legends only. And it might not be practical like the way it was professed even for the Ghajini temple in Gujarat. So before we go into how the look like, we should say what is the original splendor of how it look like. So this is some of the drawings which are available in the architecture of 𝘱𝗪𝗀𝘃𝘀𝘀 temple, which is a 14th century document, which gives a drawing in 4 manuscripts, the main Dula and the Jagmogana. Both of these combined together, structured like a beautiful chariot. And you see the 𝘱𝗪𝘀 not here. We have 2 𝘱𝗪𝘀s, one here and other thing. Whereas currently only one 𝘱𝗪𝘀 pair is there. And you also see the Arana Stamba in the front, which is now moved to Puri temple, eastern Dwara. And you see the northern Dwara with the roof and other things. And this is another way of describing the same temple, the Dula part alone in detail, in a series of 10 palm leaves together. And this is a far more detailed drawing and with a lot of finer details. So this is the full view of the temple, how it would have stood at this particular time. And this is an architectural conjecture by Ramakrishna Kuntala. So going by the projections on the contemporary temples that were available at this point of time, The Lingaraja temple was 150 feet. Rajarajeshwaram, the big temple, is around 220. The Konark Museum, based on the calculation, exceeds both of them around 230 plus. So it would have been one of the tallest temples, except for the Grand Dream by Bhojeshwara, where only this much is available now. In Bhopal, only this much temple is available now with a very, very grand Shivalinga. But if you do the projections of calculation on how big the temple is as per Agama, our Adam sir has done a calculation. Based on his projection, this would have stood tall around 300 plus feet on a complex thing. So that would have been the biggest temple dream. And Konark Museum is the biggest temple built. Rajeshwaram is the biggest temple which we can see. This is where it stands. So we can see some of the remaining in technical drawings. The technical drawings gives in detail about the yantra, chakras, the placement of the pillars, and then the measurements, ratios. All these things tally to a great extent about this. This is a 17th century document. And another artistical reconstruction, one of the popular drawings was that this is how the Dula would have looked, the Jagamohana and the Nada Mantra roofed one. Interestingly, the Bhoga Mantra is not in line, and then it is to the eastern side. And we had 4 major dwaras, and this is the Maya Devi Mandir, which is the old sun temple. This is beautifully depicted in the Konark Museum on how it is looked now, and then how it could have been there. The graphical thing is there in the Konark Museum, just opposite the Konark Temple. Please visit this next time when you go. And then the visit to Konark is not complete without visiting this grand museum. So this is how it looks at present. We see the missing Dula, we see the Jagamohana and Achitra. And this is the view from top. So having seen this temple for such a long period and how it is done, let us have a 30,000 feet overview of the temple and briefly see how it is. So this is the frontal view where we see the Jagamohana, and this is fantastic aerial photography is thanks to ASI, one of the best photography by ASI, and it gives the beautiful view of Konark, the Nathamitra without the roof, so much of documentation, so much of sculptures, and this is the Bhoga Mandira with the pillars and other things available. Another view of the Bhoga Mandira, and here we see the well, and this is the back view with the damaged Dula and the suns available. See the life-size sculptures in the patalas.
So sorry, but these last few images are not visible. The one from the images you're talking about, sir, they are not visible.
Pardon?
The images you just talked about, sir, they are not visible. In screen, it's just showing
the video is not visible.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I will share it again.
Yes.
Give me a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it visible now?
No, sir. You have to reshare it, sir. Konark, the construction slide is visible. Yes, sir. Now it is visible.
Now it is visible, sir. Yeah.
Visible, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So this is the 30,000 feet view. Thanks to ASA for such a beautiful photography and a drone photography, which gives an excellent overview of Konark. This is the view from southeast side. where we see this is the Nada Mandira with the 𝘗𝘗 and the fantastic sculptures all over the pedestal, which is around 12 feet plus. And this is the Bhoga Mandira with only the pillars standing. And on the left hand side, you see the well, and this is the backside view of the Dula with the damaged things. This is the rooftop of 𝘗𝘗 where life-size sculptures and beautiful dancing girls are there. Each one is around 6 to 7 feet high. And this is the damaged Dula. The core portion is available. This is the backside sun. This is where the sanctum is there, and you can go to the sanctum by this route. And this is blocked for now. And this is the western sun temple, and this is the southern sun temple. And this is how you see the Ratna Simhasana inside. And this is a view even Lord Narasimha would not have seen from top. The grand wheels and the setting sun scenario. And the old sun temple, which is on the backside now documented as Mahadev temple. And a very old Vishnu temple on the backside. And this is the Nata Mandira with only the pillars, and there are stairs to go upstairs to the upside. Now ASI has done one more beautiful one. They have removed all the shops here. Now the frontage looks fantastic, and we get an unobstructed view of the temple. So this is the elephant statues and the horse statues. The elephant statue is the government symbol for Orissa, and this is one of the dance pillars. This is the iron pillars which have been left in open for 300 years. This is the grand entrance. This is where the entrance has been closed. The entire structure is filled with this one. One small segment of the door jamb. So this is where it has been closed, and see the 7 layers of rekas for structuring the entrance. And this is the view from Nata Mandira on the back of this one. See the lions on top of the Beki, and the grand Amalaka and the spire on top. Till last year, the entire thing was covered in scaffolding. Now we get a grand picture of view of Konark. So an excellent video by Archaeological Survey, and thanks for that. So with this, we stop on a brief story of a mysterious thriller kind of a movie on how the Konark temple was conceived, built by the grand visionary king, and how it was documented, and how it went into disrepair, what could have been the potential causes of the damage, and how we, after learning all these things, how we should do to protect this monument. There is already talks of doing a replica of this, which has been the dream of the Shilpi, which recently passed away. He has been trying to build a replica of this, and he has been raising funds. Hope his dream comes through, and then we see a replica of a full Konark available for us in concrete and cement, and then which we'll be able to release that. Thank you for listening patiently for more than an hour. It is very difficult to compress it a little less than this. Thanks for the patience. I am open for feedback and questions.
Thank you very much, sir, for this excellent and insightful lecture. It is always a pleasure to hear you, sir. With your and Mishra sir's permission, I would like to read a few question that is in our chat box.
Sure, Anuja, go ahead.
Yeah. Sir, there's a question that where it has been asked that what is the relationship of sun and the sun god and overall this concept of sun with the place Konark.
What is the significance of Sun temple and what is the relation of Konarka means
The
that,
name of Konark.
hello?
Yes, sir. Yeah, you're audible, sir.
Hello?
You're audible, sir.
Yeah,
You're audible, sir.
right. See, I have painted a mental picture of Rajendra and the Narasimha. Okay. Like me, they want to do things out of ordinary. I always try to do in dressing and talking slightly out of ordinary. So he wanted to do out of ordinary. When people are doing Vishnu temple, Shiva temple, Shakti temple, he wanted to do something different. Okay, he might have interested in sun and the grandness of sun, and if you see the branding, the entire temple is full of Narasimha Deva doing this, that, and then he doing war, he is doing this one, and it is a complete statement about him and his branding and what he has achieved. So this is one reason why he wanted to create a temple, and there is already a mythology. There is already an existing sun temple, which is a small temple, and there is already mythology surrounded here. And then he made it into a grand temple to mention his name. Similarly, 𝘗𝗀𝘀𝘀 who moved from Vegi to head the Chola nation, he did a similar thing. In Melakadambur near Chidambaram, there was a very old temple where Airavata and others, Indra did not worship Lord Ganapati when he was traveling and his chariot was damaged. So there is a local story and then there is a small temple. When he wanted to renovate something, probably what he did was he built a grand temple like a chariot in Tamil Nadu, which was a old temple. So primarily he is excited by the same kind of an art, same kind of branding, same kind of classifying this with the sun god, the big aspect, and the grand chariot and other thing. That is the driving forces for big things, to do things out of ordinary, to create a different name. The next question, mythology talks about a person who built the final shikara, jumped into the sea. So we cannot answer the reason for mythology questions. Okay, mythology is mythology. It's a story fabricated with no substantial evidence. So it is, everything is possible in mythology.
Wonderful.
Anything else?
Mr. Babu, if you allow me, I should ask you a very simple question. Of course, you have given a very good information about this temple. So many things you have covered. But I would like to have your view. What is your view about the collapse of the temple? What do you say about it? What you have felt? How did it collapse?
As highlighted in the presentation and based on some of the expert views, my view on the reason for collapse is that it was not damaged by Muslims. It was not totally brought down by Muslims. It is not due to structural instability, probably mostly because the way it is done. And the documentation clearly says that around 1600, it went there because the main deity and others were damaged. Slowly, the worship and usage of temple went into disuse. And this being a mortar-based structure where joints were secured with the mortar and other things with heavy counterbalancing, if the mortar is not properly maintained, once it becomes loose in storm and other things, there is every potential that in the next 200 years, it is going to slowly crumble. This, along with the core of the sandstone kind of a structure, that is asking for trouble. Because similar temples built with different technologies like Tanjore Big Temple, where they have not used any joints. They had done only lock and mortar. The entire binding is primarily on the pyramid and on the heavy weight and the connection. Still, it has withstood many earthquakes and still stands in the same way without any maintenance. Okay, so probably this might be due to if the same temple would have been in worship and continued in the grand way, still we could have been seeing the splendor of the full temple. Unfortunately, it went into disuse, and because of that, slowly it degraded. We have seen so many temples going out of the Khmer and other temples. It vanished into the forest and they were dug out from that. And many of the structures were already lost. So the same story for Konark. That is my view.
Right. So you don't agree with the magnetic theory, which the scholars are saying, earthquake or lightning theory.
All these contribute in a small way. They may not be the single major contributor. When you leave a temple to the open environment, that too on a beach front, for no maintenance, no limestone, no coating and other things for 100 years, you are asking for it.
Even the foundation, you feel it's okay. Foundation is very fine.
No, if the foundation is weak, the other structures would have fallen. Only the 𝘗𝘯𝘓 has failed out.
Yeah, actually.
And there is no mention about magnetism or the magnetic structures in the 12 years of construction and the books and the three authors, they clearly confirm that no mention of magnetism in any of this project document. See, if this project documentation is fabrication, that is the only thing they'll be talking about in detail. It is magnetic, it is hanging, all this story will be there in detail if it is a fabricated document. Okay, assuming that this is a proper document and other things, still it doesn't talk about any mention about the magnetism related structures. That is another point.
Don't you think we archaeologists sometimes when we discuss, we come to this conclusion also that this temple was never completed? Have you thought about it, whether this construction was completed or left incomplete? Anything you could think on your architecture?
Right. I am going by logic, and I am relying on the book which talks about 𝘚𝗏𝘃𝘀𝘀 which is a document which talks about daily rituals in far more detail. And that is what the New Light on Konark and other books says, that this is a documentation. You can fabricate only so much. You can fabricate a 200-page story on the entire puja of all the festivals, all the things. So that means that has been in worship. This again conjecture. I am going by the circumstantial and logical evidence.
Some researches have been done and they feel that the stone which was used
There
here,
are certain archaeologists and linguists who question the veracity of the document. Again, this is for the scholars to decide. I am relying on the books and the feedback and going by the logic which is available based on the content.
Wonderful, wonderful, Professor Babu. It's nice to hear you. I think Anuja, is there any other questions?
Yes, sir, there is another question.
Yeah.
So there is another question from 𝘚𝘩𝘀𝘍𝘪 he is asking whether the use of iron pillars has led to any more damage or dilapidation, since the later temples does not have that amount of iron pillars.
Very good question.
Yeah, this is another surprising thing, where this is one of the rare instances of heavy usage of iron pillars, which we have not seen it in a heavy way in Puri or even in the 𝘗𝘗𝘓 temple. Okay, if you go to Star's favorite group, we don't see much of iron usage. Very, very minimal. But this is a unique way of doing things in a different structure. This is we have not seen any major temple of this size using extensively iron beams in this.
But I think use of iron was not very safe for this temple. Now when we are doing the conservation work, we are not using iron. We have removed iron wherever possible, because with iron, the zinc oxide which is coming out, it damages the stone badly. And what our chemical analyst and chemical archaeologists have also suggested, that iron, the catching up of this chloride stone was very fast if you compare to other stones. It absorbs the dioxide that carbon affects, the zinc affects very fastly. So the decay process is quite
very fast.
Okay. Yeah. Then if you compare with the other temples where iron has been used, so iron can be one of the very major decaying thing which must have caused damage to this temple. It is still, we are studying, still
more than the decaying iron, which still is strong, but the byproducts would have caused a lot of acidity damage to the stone.
Yes. Because you see laterite khandalite stone, if you see, it is very rough stone. It's not very soft stone, and it has pores. So that pores will absorb the zinc. It will absorb fastly. It's quite common. And wherever we have used copper in conservation of this temple, there it is fully safe. Where we have put some planks or some metals like copper, we have not seen any decaying effect in that in past 15 years, 20 years. But where iron is used, we have seen decaying. Some cracks have come or some stones have bulged. Likewise, it has affected. We have already reported.
Okay. Yeah, this is another insight. Thank you for that, sir.
Yeah. Yes, Anuja, go ahead.
Yeah, so there is another question. Are 𝘚𝘩𝘀 or Chanda's book available in print, sir?
I think it is available in Banaras bookstore.
Yeah. It's on net also. They can find on net also.
Yeah, Exotic India website has it.
Yeah. Next.
Sir, those were the questions for now. Now I'd like to invite Sir, Mishra sir, for concluding remarks.
This actually, thank you, Anuja. Thank you very much. Our title was Konark and Enigma. its building techniques and other mysteries. And to hear a lecture from a non-archaeologist like Sivasankar Babu, who in the initial stage had said that whatever he has read from the books and whatever knowledge he had attained, with that he has given such an excellent information about Konark temples. Many new things he has informed. So I have, sometimes I feel why he says that he is a non-archaeologist. I find him to be a very good archaeologist with so many technical knowledges which he has shared with all of us. And I'm sure this lecture will be very much useful all over the country as well as to the experts who are working on Konark conservation. And we should request him to come with us again and again on MAKAUT site for this kind of presentation. So we thank him and we welcome him again. Thank you.
Thank you for the blessing and kind words, sir. Actually, this validation makes me very happy. And I think I have learned something, I have studied something. Thank you for the feedback. I will definitely read more about this and then try to add more content and do a similar coverage for some of the other topics. Definitely, it is a very good, interesting inputs and support from that. Thanks for your support in adding a lot of other insights into this. Thank you very much. Looking forward to do more such interesting technology plus heritage plus archaeological analysis kind of presentations. That is really a cornerstone of 𝘗𝘯𝘨 kind of series, and already it has got a very good reputation of coming up with the quality sessions. Definitely, I'd be proud to be part of that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. With Mishra sir's permission, I'd like to give the vote of thanks for today's session.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you, sir. First and foremost, I would like to thank our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Dr. 𝘕𝘠𝘀𝘮𝑚𝘠. Sir has always been supportive of our endeavors, and also thank you so much, Sivasankar Babu sir, because sir have always been with us, supporting us, and we are also very grateful for sir to give us such an insightful and interesting talk today. And also our director sir, Dr. Phanikanta Mishra sir. Thank you so much, sir, for being with us today. And also thank you, Premji, for your technical support. Thank you.